Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California. This is Success Sadhana. My name is JM, and I welcome you all to a program today where we'll discuss the topic inner advantage, secrets for spiritual clarity in a distracted world. With a speaker today, Vaish, veteran Bhakti yogi, author, and former monk. Really glad to have him back for another episode. He has been traveling a lot this year, so every episode is precious. So thank you so much, Vaish, for coming back to Success Sadhana today.
Thank you very much, Jam. It's such a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much, everyone, for joining in. Thanks, Mukarvin, Manish, for asking for the topics earlier so you can get the word out to more people. And looking forward to being with all of you. Thanks for those of you who are able to put your cameras on. For those of you who can't, I understand maybe a workplace thing. And yeah, we delve into the idea or ideas that are passed down to us, especially from the teachers who study Bhagavad Gita, which is a commonsensical literature. It's been studied across the spectrum, philosophy, psychology, humanities, theology, and so forth, in which there are, and in which there are many parallels to mindfulness meditation that is practiced by many today. So it's described in a poem uh, honoring the Bhagavad Gita as to be a kamadenu. It's a cow that can give you anything that you ask for. That's a conception from antiquity of somebody or something that can give you everything in one place. Kamadenu. Kama means the desire, can fulfill all your desires. And so success, that's another word in the title of our program, Success Sadhana. Sadhana comes from sad in Sanskrit. It means to apply yourself to a discipline. And a sadhaka is one who has a framework in life, has an idea of what he or she is working for, which is the sadhya or the goal. And one of today's topics will be what the most prominent sadhya or goal is as given through the ancient wisdom literatures like the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. It's a simple concept, turning towards ourselves rather than being externally focused. It's one way to say it in one sentence. And what are the ways and means of doing that? Well, we'll talk about that today. Won't we, JM?
Sure, definitely.
Sure, why not? Okay. Was everyone doing well? Okay, let's prove it. We'll just start with a little icebreaker. Just say one thing that you're grateful for. We don't have to go to everybody, but let's take five because once you start, it's hard to stop. Say one thing that you're grateful for in your life today. You can either type it if you're a little bit shy or you can't speak up because you're in an environment where you can't, or you can just raise your hand and we'll take Radhakripa.
I'm grateful for today's session itself, what you're going to do. Thank you.
Okay, and you can only play one of those cards, by the way. The rest of them have to be. What are you grateful for? Gratitude's a very powerful emotion. It requires that there's a benefit, somebody giving benefit to you intentionally, if you think about what gratitude means. One thing in your life in general, from the past at the present, that you're grateful for. We need four more. Oh,
Grateful for home.
my friend Rakesh is visiting us from Indiana. Welcome, Rakesh. Thank you very much for getting on today.
Hare Krishna, thank you so
Good to
much.
see you.
I'm here to take your association, so I think that's what I'm grateful for. I think that has already been covered, but really look, the wealth of devotee association is unparalleled. I think that's what I'm grateful for.
Thank you very much, Rakesh. Fantastic. And we have from Bhakti Mateus. So are you enjoying good health, Mateus, apparently? You look effulgent, so that's good.
It's really hot
Good
here,
health.
I was gonna say I'm grateful because I have a fan in my room. It's really hot here.
Are you in Southern California?
San Diego, yes.
Yeah, it's hot. Heat wave. Grateful for the fan, grateful for your health. How about Manu? What are you grateful for in your family?
Just having around my daughter and my husband.
What are they doing for you that's making you grateful?
I think like one thing that comes to my mind is to love and to be loved. Having people like them, like them
Fantastic.
around.
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal of the Vedic teachings is to come to understand what love is and to love and be loved. And Nirali. Oh, we have Gautami Krishna Balabanina as for people who create safe space. Fantastic. And Popominiville. I'm sorry. I forgot what your first name is.
Patrice.
Patrice.
Yeah.
And Patrice says health as well. What a blessing to have good health. Thank you, Patrice. Safe spaces. Family and life from Nirali, and Chandu is grateful for receiving and providing care. Thank you, everybody. I came to find out yesterday we were doing a little networking and some research projects, and at UC Davis, there's a department, a professor there whose niche study is gratitude. He's a psychologist. I thought that was interesting. We found several professors who've been having conversations with in various places who specialize in meditation and mindfulness. We haven't talked to this person in UC Davis, but he's a peer-reviewed and published um, professor who specializes in gratitude. That's what inspired me to start off with gratitude today. In the abstracts of some of his papers, I noticed that he considers gratitude an intervention. It's an intervention. There's a way in which we were discussing it the other day, that is gratitude. And I recalled a conversation I overheard. I wasn't eavesdropping, I just happened to hear it. Two people were talking on a street corner, and one was complaining, acrimoniously complaining about somebody else. And the interlocutor who was standing across from him said, well, I'm just trying to be grateful. And I could perceive that the nature of the conversation went in a different direction just by that introduction of the concept of gratitude and just trying to be grateful. And it is a precursor to the higher states of consciousness, gratitude. Interestingly enough, this program today isn't about gratitude. I just spontaneously brought it up, because I always think it's a good way to start things. In fact, it's a good way to start one's day. And I learned from a really close friend of mine who I travel with a lot. He wakes up in the morning as soon as he puts his feet on the floor, before he even steps off his bed, he names several people in his life that he's deeply grateful for. And he also, in his morning meditation, starts off by keeping that sense of gratitude in his heart and letting it be a purifying agent before he begins his deep meditation. And gratitude clears the way for clear consciousness. And in for those who practice bhakti yoga, sometimes when they're asked, what is bhakti yoga? They say it's the yoga of love and gratitude. And that's a pretty good definition. So just hearing from you about what you're grateful for makes me feel grateful for many of these things too. Thank you very much, everybody. So let's just take a moment to be introspective. And if you'll sit up, make yourself long and loose. And try closing your eyes for a minute. And just bring your breath into regulation by counting 4 counts on the inhale and 6 counts on the exhalation, and relax, stay long, and stay loose. And count in 4 and count out in 6, and be fully aware of the importance of your breath. Be grateful for your ability to breathe in this moment. And let your mind rest just on the breath. And now take a moment to step back from your life situation and be an observer. This is called sakshi, a witness. Take yourself out of any responsibility that you feel you have in life. Take it off your head, your shoulders, from your heart, and just be an objective observer and see your life as somebody else's life. And you're just an aware observer. Now bring your awareness to any sounds that you hear around you. Just notice them. You might not have noticed them a minute ago, but you can notice them now. And just note that they're there. And now become aware of your entire body and notice that it's vibrant. It has feeling. You can notice the entirety of your body as a vibrant entity that you're illuminating from within by your own consciousness. And feel grateful that you're able to be aware of whatever you want to be aware of. And now look inwardly and just note any emotions, the way of thought energy, especially something that you're holding in your heart that's emotional. And just observe it as an energy. Don't hold on to it. Just be the observer of it. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions how this sort of observation gives one a sense of detachment, equanimity, that things are going on in this world. And we have our own influence, but it's very limited. And we needn't grab onto every thought, every emotion. We can participate as much as needed, but not be carried away by the thoughts and emotions. And come back to your breath. And wiggle your fingers and toes a little bit just to feel the sensation. And then very deliberately come back into the external environment that you're in by opening your eyes. And welcome back. And now we're going to look at a few slides and have a discussion. Now today we're talking about inner advantage, secrets to spiritual clarity in a distracted world. So firstly, I tell you a story. Actually, I wrote down a few notes about this story. Yeah, I was in a shop, and I was waiting in the line. I was looking out the window of the shop, and I saw somebody look in the window very intently, and I thought, oh, he's looking at me. And then I noticed he was going like this, like brushing his hair back, and I noticed, oh, he's not looking at me at all. He's just looking at himself. He's just preening himself, fixing his hair. And I suddenly felt a disconnect because I thought, oh, yeah, he's looking at me. Then I realized he wasn't. So we put here, about the man in the window. We miss the treasures within ourselves and others because of absorption in our external features. But when we learn to witness and take joy in witnessing our own consciousness, then we can be satisfied anywhere at any time. Let's go to the next slide. There's this poem, The Man in the Window. I saw a man through a store window. His eyes met mine, or so I thought. I raised my hand in greeting, but he was only watching his own reflection. My heart sank. So it is with me. I move through a world of enchanting souls, yet miss them all, fixated on the ego's mirror, showing only me. Polishing an image, I lose the real. The treasure is near, but hidden by the shimmer of a false identity. In stillness, I discover the quiet wonder of being the one who sees. And so there's a way in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna talks about how self-realization begins with realizing we're not just a material body and mind. There's something behind it. I used to say you're not your body, you're not your mind, but a colleague of mine recently said, that's a little too extreme because we feel so much the identification with the body, it's practically jarring to tell somebody you're not your body. It's like, how can I suddenly process that? So he said, I'll just give you one little adjustment. He said, you're not just your body or mind. And that's justifiable in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna talks about the Atma, and one of the Sanskrit dictionaries defines Atma as the body, the mind, and the self. The self, called the Atma, is the conscious entity within the body. Truthfully, they're different energies. And part of that energy is called the ahankar. It's an interesting mechanism that helps us to relate to our context in the material world as a physical being. Truthfully, we're not physical beings. We're metaphysical. We're beyond the body. But how would we connect to the body? It's analogous to whatever mechanism is used in virtual reality when you connect through some apparatus so that you can see an alternative reality and interact with it. So false ego is there. But just like one can become absorbed in such a virtual reality as to forget oneself at one's own peril, we can similarly forget our own selves by being misguided by our own false sense of identity called ahankara, or false ego. Much more to say about that, but I'm going to pause here just for a second. Can you bring us back to the room? We're all warmed up because we talked about gratitude, but just any reflections. I'll only ask for two from somebody who hasn't spoken yet. Anything that you heard so far that stuck in your mind? Doesn't have to, it can just be a repeat of what we said, or anything that connected to any of your own realizations. Oh,
Chuck, good.
oh, good. Chuck's here. Okay, go ahead, Chuck.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna Vaish, good to be here with you all. So I was struck by the part about there's so many enchanting souls around, but we're so fixated on our own egos and on ourselves. And so I was just reflecting on that and the need to kind of get out of this fixation on ourselves and focus more on others.
Yeah, it comes up often in conversation. I notice myself, somebody else is talking, and I'm thinking, as soon as they stop, I'm going to start telling same subject, but from my own point of view. And just practicing resisting that and listening to others. I've been around people who are very practiced in that, not being self-centered. and it's noticeable. And yeah, that's something we miss. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. One more. Any reflection? Yes. Hetty.
Hare Krishna. Thanks. I think the being not just the body and not just the mind, and how it's sort of like a video game, I guess, that came to mind. That like this is the video game of life, I guess, but there's like something deeper. And I guess like kind of like what you were saying, being in kind of when you think that you're only the body and the mind, there's more suffering, I guess, because you forget who you truly are. And just in my practice, at least, I've really started to feel that. So that resonated. Thanks.
Thank you very, very much. It's hard to express how much I appreciate hearing your reflections because it augments the conversation. It guides me a little bit. That reminded me of what you just said, Hetty, about a verse from the Bhagavad Gita. It's in the 5th chapter called Karma Yoga Action in Krishna Consciousness. And in this chapter of the Gita, Krishna's talking about what you might be called applied yoga. That is, okay, you have your yoga mat, or you have your place to meditate, or you have your own internal practice, but how will you bring it into your life? And in this chapter, he talks about the ways in which people who have this clarity of who they are and who they aren't move about in the world. And this verse says, and it's 5, 8 through 9, a person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within themselves that they actually do nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening and closing their eyes, they always know that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that they are aloof from them. And this is an awareness of what you were talking about, the material, the apparatus of the body and how it's interacting with the world, but also maintaining a sense of aloofness, of the kind of witnesshood we just talked about at the opening. Thanks for sharing. And JM, there's one more on the board. It looks like Rakesh
Yes.
put something up.
Rakesh is saying there was a quote in a TV series: no one is thinking about you the way you are thinking about you. In other words, everyone is quite absorbed in themselves.
Yeah, that's a very important reminder. And there's a sort of freedom to being yourself and not having to live up to expectations. I think I mentioned a while back about a friend of mine from high school who became a paramedic. Not my friend Matthew, who was a paramedic for 20 years, but it just ended up he was on the ambulance with another friend of mine who happened to be somebody I went to high school with. And he became a hero during the Loma Prieta earthquake because he saved several people, did medical procedures when the freeway collapsed over in the East Bay. And he got in the news and everything. And when he retired from the paramedic profession, he wrote an article about removing the mask because somehow that idea of him being heroic had stuck to him. And he said it was a bane on his life. And he just described the relief of giving that up and saying how it was so superficial. And just instilled in me this awareness of how when we carry a false sense of identity, that it's a great burden. It's hard to pretend that you're something that you're not. And it's so easy to be who you are, actually. It's natural. And that's really one of the main tenets of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita is to be yourself. But first you have to know who yourself is. And if you try to be your false self, then that's a lot of work. It's a little too much work for any living entity. You can't keep it up. It just doesn't, it doesn't stay for very long. Whatever we think we are now, it becomes something else later. Any other thoughts before we move on? I'll tell you what we're moving on to.
There is one note from Sudha. She says, that's a great valve to release some anxiety.
Ooh, nice metaphor. Thank you, Sudha. I like that, using the valve. Yeah, we should have that valve because it builds up that sense of anxiety. And yeah, that's a book I just finished reading called Unwinding Anxiety. It was by Judson Brewer. And we had a conversation with him last week. So I wanted to read his book before we talked. And it's amazing how deeply psychiatrists go into the movements of the mind. He maps it so expertly in so many different ways and talks about how we get into loops that are really hard to come out of. He specializes in helping people overcome habits and addictions. And so he studied it very deeply, found it very interesting. So one of his points, back to what you said, Sudha, is we have to have some valve, a mechanism, a practice, a sadhana to be able to release these loops in our head that put us into anxiety. Because the mind's always going, always creating some major motion picture or minor motion pictures, different kinds of genre going on in our head. And if we watch those movies again and again, we just get exhausted. Okay, well, let's soldier on and see what we can do next. The next concept we have here on the screen is most people live as if they'll be here forever, but plan their day as if they're already late. We may, in other words, get so absorbed in our so-called obligations, we may forget that we're not here forever. And it's very helpful to contextualize what our life is. I've recently been mentioning, because it came to my mind once recently, about how our whole life is a reel. Not R-E-A-L, but R-E-E-L. And you know, when you put on a reel, it's not going to go very long. For some reason, there's been, as far as I could understand, some deliberate engineering of content so that it's so short and without a conclusion also just cuts off to keep people trying for more, trying to get to a conclusion and watching reels over and over again. And our lives can become like that also. There's no ultimate conclusion. It's just trying to catch up with our to-do list. And it grows and grows and we can't really catch up with it. That profile of the man standing there in the middle of the street is a common sight. Everywhere we go, we notice that people are looking at that external brain they carry around. And you see, we're already seeing a reflection of the world. We don't actually see it directly. We see the world through the mirror of our minds, but then we look at it again through another external device, a phone, and so forth. And there's this forward drive we get into where we forget the present moment. And that's partly because we lose context of the ultimate purpose of life. Any observations about the picture? How does it make you feel? Yes, Patricia.
Yeah, the cell phone picture hits home. It's crazy just in San Francisco, just watching, it's like Zombieland almost downtown. Like people are just walking on the sidewalk in their cell phone, like, or in the subway. Everybody's just like sucked into this black hole device, it feels. Yeah, it's pretty disheartening, to be honest.
Yeah, I love your terminology. Black hole sucked in. And this is, not just the external device, but the mind, our own minds are an external device provided to us. And this is one of the concepts of the controlled mind versus the uncontrolled mind. When we're able to regulate our mind and also have a way to be aloof from our mind's ideas and emotions. The emotions arise in a different energy center, mostly in the heart region. This is what Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita as the first symptom of becoming self-realized. I'll read that to you. It's in the second chapter of the Gita, one of my favorite sections because it's so straightforward. You know, this is a conversation between Arjuna, who's a warrior and a great one at that, and Krishna, who's his chariot driver. And Arjuna loses his nerve to fight. And it's a righteous battle taking place. So he turns to his chariot driver and changes his relationship with him and says, please become my teacher because I don't know what to do right now. So he asks this question. He says, this does Arjuna, "O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does such a person speak? What is their language? How do they sit and how do they walk?" And in the next verse, Krishna replies, when a person gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when such a person's mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, such people are said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. And this verse describes how it says, Prajahati adakaman sarvapartha manogatan. So the words here in Sanskrit are that Prajahati means being able to create a little separation from something, to be able to pull back. Like, have you ever been in a situation where somebody made you angry? Please say yes, because it's happened to me. Happens to me like multiple times. So yeah, you know, anger is a all-consuming kind of energy, and it can start as a little fire and turn into a conflagration. It can destroy our whole lives. So many examples of that. And so an urge like anger might come up in a certain circumstance. A person who's self-realized would be able to contextualize that immediately. In other words, because of their own inner work, when they see that emotion come up, they say, oh, that's not me, that's something else. They don't get consumed by it, they don't get pulled by it. And so prajahati means they're able to stand back from it and not embrace it. The anger's there, but it's like, it's not me, that's something else. Prajahati adakaman sarva partha manogatan. What's more, there are a lot of sarva. Kama means there are all these emotions and desires that are being manufactured by the mind. And if you think of a conveyor belt that's coming and bringing these things one after another, what he's saying here is the person who is becoming self-realized isn't obligated to grab them all and take them along. Then the next part is Atmani. Atma means the self, but in this context, it means our higher self. And what do I mean by higher self? Higher self, in the parlance of the Bhagavad Gita, there's a hierarchy. Lowest of all are the senses. Check and see if you have any senses. It's kind of very interesting to inventory your senses because we take them totally for granted. Like, I'm looking around right now. It's like, yeah, I could see stuff. It's like, how are you seeing something? It's amazing, actually. And your hands are considered senses. These are called karmendriyas. Indriya means senses and karma means work. So you can do work with your hands. That's quite amazing. I mean, how am I doing that? And so there are these working senses and knowledge gathering senses, hearing, seeing, tasting, feeling, and so forth. So those are on the hierarchy, those are the lowest. Then above that, there's the mind. The mind is also considered a sense. It's called the sense within. But what it does is it collates or holds all of the impulses that are coming from all the senses in one place. But above the mind is the intellect. So this is a very precise definition of the body that we have given in Sankhya, in which you count all the elements and all their ways of working. And so the buddhi, or the intelligence, is the one that then discriminates. You look at all the things that are there in the mind, and then it creates, according to the condition of the intelligence, it makes its best choice. Now, if the intelligence becomes degraded by the lower modes of nature, we make really bad choices. In other words, we can do all kinds of things with the information that we have in our minds, but we can do really bad things with it too. So above the intelligence is called the Atma. And the Atma is non-material. It's not a subtle matter like the intelligence, which is very fine. It's so fine that you can't see it with your eyes. So is the mind. And then the senses, of course, for the most part, you can see. You can't see the mechanisms behind them so well, but the soul is a different category of energy altogether called consciousness, which is different from the inert matter that everything else is made out of. So, back to the point, Atma. In this context of the verse, Atma means that self that's the actual seer. Your eyes don't really see. You're seeing, this is just an instrument, and that's taking in the information from the outside world and then goes through the apparati that I just mentioned, and then you interpret it. And then you actually see it as the soul, the Atma. And then he says, Tushta. So when you're able to see yourself beyond the body, I didn't do that intentionally. My thing just does it. When I do this, it just does it. Like I'm giving myself a thumbs up. Yeah, way to go. Atman eva manatushta. It means that when you're able to see yourself beyond the lower elements that are part of your body, and you're able to take pleasure in it, to feel satisfied in yourself. Stita means you're solid. Pragna. Stita pragna means you're situated properly in consciousness. So if you lose that idea, what can happen is you just become absorbed in the stimulus and response. It's coming into your senses and you react to it. And so when a person gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when the mind thus purified finds satisfaction in the self alone, that person is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. I think that was a reaction to what somebody said. Be that as may, we're going to move on because there's a few more slides. And I'd love to hear your reaction to some of them. Okay, so now this one may sound cliche, but because who hasn't talked about the present moment being the only time we have? But who's really experienced it? My supposition is if you're able to experience this phenomena, that now is the only ever time we have, you do feel Atmatushta. There's a great relief. In the Bhagavad Gita, it's mentioned this phenomena of reaching a spiritual point of view. It's in the 18th chapter, and it's in the, if I'm not incorrect, it's in the 54th verse. Yeah, it says here that one who is transcendentally situated at once realizes the supreme Brahman, means the ultimate spiritual source of everything, and becomes fully joyful Such a person never laments or desires to have anything. They are equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state, they attain pure devotional service unto me. So there are several symptoms of one who is able to step into the present moment that is not be carried away by the pullings of the mind. One of the pullings is lamentation. I think about the past and wish I could fix it. You can't. It's if you've ever heard of the word resentment, of course you have. If you look at the word resentment, resent, it means there are things that happened already and you're resending them. Nobody likes regifting, right? Stop sending yourself these crummy gifts over and over again. Don't push the button. Resentment. Yeah, I'll just try to wallow in that and experience it again and again and hope I can fix it through my intelligence. You can't. And then in the future, there's a sense of worry and anxiety that what might happen in the future. These are illusory. But when we come into the present moment, which is the only time that we have full, we call our center of influence, the power of the present moment. It's edifying, to say the least, to be able to come into that. In the book I wrote, I gave this mantra that I use. What is the best investment of my attention right now? And if I ask myself that from moment to moment, what's the best investment of my attention right now? It pulls me back into that present moment. Because that's all we have. And the other ideas about the future, about the past, these are the little movies we're playing in our mind. There's a movie about the past, there's a movie about what might happen in the future. And if we sit there and watch them, they can be hair-raising. If you've ever watched a movie that caused your hair to stand on end, we're playing them for ourselves again and again. And not just one, we move from one to the next. And this keeps us entranced in illusion. It's illusory because it's a concoction by our own minds. So there's actual there is a realm of self-satisfaction. And if you noticed from the verse I just read, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. Prasannatma means you feel joyful. But it's not joyful because you gain something from a bodily concept of life, meaning that, okay, I just found out I had $100,000 I forgot about. Okay, I'm joyful for a second. And then you think, yeah, but I owe all that in taxes anyway. I think I'm still broke. I still don't have any money. No, it's a different joyfulness. It's a joy that's natural because we're eternal and because we don't die and because there's no burden actually on our head from this worry, anxiety, future, past. We exist now. We've always existed now. And when we experience that in the moment, we feel joyful. And then the shochati and akanchati, what I just said, you're not playing the movie for the future and you're not playing it for the past. And samak means equal. You're equal to others because you see them as spiritual beings beyond the body. Okay, any reaction to that? This is such a great group. I feel enlivened to ask that because I know something will be forthcoming. Look at that. Rakesh, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna. As you were saying, I was just thinking that although we understand that what we have is the current moment, but I think to be in that current moment, the alternative, like we should be knowledgeable of what to do with the current moment. If otherwise, I think if that clarity is not present of how do I better invest my consciousness, we tend to take shelter in the past and the future again. So that clarity of how to invest the consciousness, I think, should be clear. So maybe that would be with our sadhana. Is that how we get where to have our attention?
What a important comment, and thank you for ending it with a question, because that leads into my next slide. Miraculously. And I've given it this different label. You mentioned is that our sadhana. So what I'm calling it here is self-awareness management. The real issue is not time management, it's self-awareness management. This, as you were saying, how do we manage our awareness? In essence, that's our sadhana. And it goes back to that little mantra that I use for myself. What's the best investment of my attention right now? God, anyway, it's another slide. I won't go too much further, but yes, to answer your question, it's really to know where to put our awareness, where to point it. First thing is to become aware, and this is congruent with Judd Brewer's writings in psychology. He talks about before you can get out of a habit loop, the first step is awareness. You have to be aware that you're in one. Otherwise, you don't come out of it. Like with a movie, sometimes you don't even know you're watching a movie until somebody turns on the lights. Or you might not even know you're scrolling until all of a sudden the internet goes out and then there's no thing there. And then you go, oh my God, where was I? So, first thing is awareness management. We have to know that we are aware. It's also where are we placing our awareness at any given moment? And yes, we should have a hierarchy of investments and understand where's the best investment of my time, of my awareness. So we should manage our awareness. So that's practice. One way that we can come into this sense of the importance of managing our awareness in the next slide is the lotus drop. And that is in a Bengali poem. It's a Kamala Dalajala Jivana Talamala. Nice alliteration there, but it says, this life is like a drop of water, as you see there in the picture, hanging from a lotus leaf. If you ever watched a lotus, it's got these expansive leaves and the water beads up on them, and sometimes they just hang on the edge, like that one. Can you see the one in the middle? It's got a little sparkle to it. That's us. We're hanging there. And if you sit there and have your lunch and just watch it and say, when's that going to fall off? It's going to fall off, but we don't know when. That's our lives. One of my good friends, whenever we see each other, I say, how are you doing? He says, hanging by a thread. And he says, how are you doing? I say, I'm hanging by a thread too. So it really, to be able to have this conception of how important our lives are, if we go to the end, it can be very, very important. In fact, I just gave a class about this the other day. I had this epiphany. I think it's because I lost a good friend who recently passed away when I was in India. And I had written the next day, I was processing it all. And I wrote this in my notepad. It said, pretend you're dead. And now, as an observer of your past life, you're going about correcting anything you did wrong and collecting the lessons and compiling the things you did right. And when I took myself out of my current life and said, okay, let's imagine I'm already dead, everything's been done, the ashes have been committed somewhere and so forth. As I now have the luxury of going back and observing what's really going on. And so there's this amazing way in which our lives become so enriched when we think of the end. When we just remain attached to think, I'll make this go on forever, then we become miserly, and we can also become distracted and forget about the real purpose of life and how important people are to us. rather than things. And so this lotus drop is an important meditation. You can do this. Start your day by your meditation by imagining yourself hanging by that little filament of water, if there is such a thing. So our projects, titles, and roles are temporary assignments. Since everything external is temporary, the only real asset you're building is your inner condition. Rather straightforward, right? So all roles we're playing temporarily. So remember, and then this admonition, don't shop when you're hungry. When you're hungry, you make impulsive buying decisions. When you're internally empty, you make impulsive life choices also. Like, have you ever written a reactive email? It's worse than it's worse almost than doing it in person because the email, they can save it and show you later. Poor hiring decisions, unnecessary purchases, entering relationships, projects due to lack of self-satisfaction. A whole, there's a plethora of ways that we work in error when we shop the world when we're hungry. So we should develop that internal satisfaction. So the next slide says, fill up before you go out. And one recommended way to do this is have a morning discipline. Seize the morning. One is greet the sun. Don't go past that. What I recommend, my way of waking up in the morning, I have this alarm clock. It's an orb. It's made by Philips. And there's no sound. It just starts to light up in the morning. Uh, and by the time I'm set to wake up, it's so bright you can't sleep. And then my other process in the morning is to always greet the sun. That means never sleep past it for sure. Find out when the sun's coming up and make sure you get up way before that. So you can position yourself to watch it come up. If you make that ritual, it really puts you on an Earth planet that's calibrated and can bring you into a higher state of consciousness just by observing the world properly. And then take time to meditate. What does meditate? Med means to take appropriate measures, literally is what it means. And so we have to do some self-observation, and really the kind of meditation that's most recommended, as far as I can see, is not just silent, but we do have to be introspective and do the kind of practice we were just talking about and be very focused and not in the mind, but then use mantra and repeat mantra, listen to mantra and practice. Now, here's a nice point we got from Dr. Cresswell, whom we talked to yesterday. David Cresswell is from Carnegie Mellon University. He has a department there on mindfulness and meditation. And one of his main points is, because he teaches meditation so much, is to be okay with discomfort. So many people, they talk about sitting down to chant and they say, oh, it's so hard, I can't control my mind. Okay, good. Suffer a little bit. There's a fruit to that suffering. Be okay with being bored, or the way he puts it, benign discomfort. And then practice, because this is the inner work that's necessary to feel full. If you can have one moment of awareness early in the morning, before you start doing other stuff, you'll feel this inner satisfaction that will give you the wherewithal to move about the world without being sucked into it, as Patrice said. And then read. And I recommend not reading from a screen, because there's a lot of evidence nowadays. If you look at a screen, it messes up your head. So you can get distracted too easily. Read from a book and read something that is nourishing, like some transcendental literature. And these three practices early in the morning, start your day, can fill you up before you go out. And we have a story, the day the world went gray. I better hurry up. Okay, here it is. The day the world went gray. One day after I had boarded an Air India flight in New Delhi, I took my seat and looked around the cabin. It was a morning flight, and almost everyone aboard had a newspaper in their hands, holding the pages close as if to drink in every drop of the latest news. In America, my eyes would have caught on a headline or two. I might have noticed which politician said what to whom. Oh, did he really say that? Outrageous. Which sports team just won a championship? Heroes. Who has died? How sad. But on that morning, with no context, I couldn't relate what to speak of get a taste for any of the headlines. Oddly, my mind remained uninterested and unattached. The newspaper columns and pictures all turned gray. I didn't recognize the names of politicians involved in scandals, and since I knew nothing of the sports that were being reported upon, much less the athletes who were excelling in them, I didn't care who had flubbed the game in the closing minutes. Even the local disasters seemed hard to relate to. In that moment of grayness, I caught a glimpse of what it would be to see all the happenings of the world as gray, all strum and drung, storm and stress, emotional turbulence. As Shakespeare wrote, life is but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. So, this idea of the world turning gray doesn't mean that we're unexcited about the world or anything, but categorically, all that's going on in the world, all the emotional stress we're feeling from the environment, from whatever is, well, I hate to even mention the word politics. It raises the blood pressure. In any case, the way people are kind of attached to the goings on of the world, the sports, I already mentioned those. Categorically, it's something different from our real interest. And the world can become categorically gray, uninteresting, but luckily there's a bigger, better offer. That is something that is so intriguing and interesting. And it starts with self realization. So make your peak moment now. And remember, your attention is your most valuable currency, and where you place it shapes who you become. The end. Tat Sat. Except for this one. That's it. We came to the last moment, and I'm deeply grateful to all of you for joining in today. And I'll end by enacting a gesture that I previously and many times have ascribed to the yogis high in the Himalayas. But it's not exclusive to them. With a little more research, I found out even thousands of years ago, sages at Naimisaranya would greet each other and bid farewell by putting their arms in the air and saying this phrase, which is Hari Bol. Hari means the supreme who takes away all of one's obstacles, and Bol means to say, and it's just a really nice way to depart. So I was thinking of trying it today too. What do you think? I'm doing it. Haribo!
Haribo!
Haribol!
Thanks, everybody.